Good morning, YouTube. We are here early this Saturday morning to talk everything Married at First Sight, Season 18 Chicago, Episode 12. Now, just a reminder, if you have not caught up on Episode 12, make sure that you do that before you watch this video. If you've watched Episode 12, we are good to go. Now, we're going to start with how David said this week that he is not a normal family. That's my quote of the episode. That's the quote that made me laugh. I can't believe he said that. I can't believe how hard he doubles down on the entire Dumpling escapade. What a shock. Actually, not really. His audacity is really not that surprising, but I think that early on this season, we have gotten to see a really nice edit of David. I think that they've sort of made Michelle seem really cold and like she just has a problem with David for no reason. And valid. Maybe Michelle has really been uninterested this entire time, but it's also possible that David and Madison have been talking since day one. On the honeymoon, we heard Alan say, how you talk to David is different than how you talk to me. Fast forward, we are where we are. So, yeah, I don't know if David is just as unserious about this experience, but that's the vibe that I'm getting. Let's get into it. So I'm going to be reading from my phone. Typically, I have my notes up on my computer. So if you see me glancing around and looking at things, I'm just looking at my notes. This episode, we see all of the couples meet each other's families. And we start with Thomas and Camille, and he gets to meet her family. And Thomas was excited to meet Camille's family and tap into her safe space, her soft side, and be in an environment that makes her feel comfortable so that he could really get to know her on a deeper level. What Thomas learns while he's meeting her family. First of all, Camille's family is so cute. Camille's family is adorable. I can see her strong relationship with her dad. I'm taking a drink of coffee. If you have coffee, take a sip as well. And we get to learn more about why that basketball date was so important to Camille. Number one, she went pretty far with her career in basketball. I didn't know that she played for as long as she did. Number two, it was a real bonding experience with her and her dad. And it was one of those pivotal moments where she got to see how far someone goes who loves you. And I think that that level of support is something that she's looking for in a partner like Thomas. So she's there. Her love for basketball emerged her sophomore year of high school. So in her second year of high school, and her dad's coaching, motivation, and just practicing with the two of them together is what pushed her to do the sport. Her dad realized, okay, you're good at running, you're good at passing, you're good at shooting. I think you can actually do something with this, and kept pushing her to go farther with it. Her dad is really cute. Like I said, her dad reminds me a lot of my dad. So she started her sophomore year of high school with practice, turned into the best player in the state. Okay, Thomas, that's why you were doing those down and backs the way you were. And that's why she was doing way better than you, to be quite frank. And then we also hear about, again, going back to Camille's father, we hear about the anchor that her dad is in her life. Saying how it relates to my dad, it seems like Camille's dad always goes above and beyond and taught her that not only is that possible, but that ideally for a partner, you would want those same attributes out of them. So I think that she holds her father to a high regard. I think she holds her partners to high regards. And I think she holds herself to a high regard. And I think that Thomas and Camille are actually the most compatible on this entire season. I think they're probably most likely on decision day to keep their marriage and continue with each other. I'll also say that I think that Thomas is going to enjoy being a part of Camille's family and the dynamic that he has. And that's not to say that his family dynamic is not special, because it is, but it seems like Thomas has a lot more going on with his dynamic of his family, which I can relate to. So with Camille's family, there's like a little bit of an ease there. Michelle's going to meet and to see her family, and David is going to meet them for the first time. Now, on the way, they, of course, have to address the text that she got the night before. What horrible timing. What horrible timing. I'm going to be honest. If I was Michelle, I don't know how she was able to keep it together that entire day. This argument, this text message would be enough for me to not have a good day. I'd be like, you know what? we're actually not going to go meet my parents. But I think that this is like a filming obligation that they have. And I don't really think that they have a choice. But yeah, so before beginning this episode, I'd say most of us were empathizing with David in the relationship. Michelle was cold. Quite frankly, she was kind of bitchy. She didn't give him any grace. She didn't give him any compliments. It seemed like David was the one who was, like I said, offering her grace, offering her an olive branch to like keep the relationship going. And it seemed like Michelle was just like denying everything that he tried to do. Additionally, Michelle's energy when she's around anybody but David is just so different that it seemed like, okay, how Akechi says that M is treating him, making him feel small, was actually how it seemed that the dynamic was between David and Michelle. She was actually making him feel small and actively minimizing things that he was talking about. But like I started off this episode saying, the way that things play out and the way that David doubles down on things, or the energy that he does towards the end of the episode, really makes me wonder if we've been seeing a good edit of David and if Michelle's seen more and more moments with David like what we saw. If that defensiveness came up every time they talked about his living situation, or we've seen T on Reddit, there's like whispers, I've said this the entire season, that potentially David doesn't live with his parents. People are suspecting that he may live with like a female friend's parents. If he is, if that's something that Michelle knows, I think that that would be something that would be a point of contention in their relationship. So they're on their way to her parents, and during the car ride, she brings up to David and she's like, so, you know, what was that text message that you sent me last night? And before she asks that, she starts by asking David what he did last night. And it was interesting that he was out with Alan and Madison for a couple of reasons. Number one, I'm curious why Michelle wasn't there. Maybe that just kind of shows Michelle's level of participation in this relationship and that she was really unwilling to do anything with David. And if so, to be honest, Michelle, I can't really feel that badly for you getting cheated on then. But like, let's say she wasn't invited, etc. That's interesting. It's interesting that she wasn't there. It's also interesting because the text message that she received immediately seems like something that he could have sent to Madison, and probably did send to Madison when she showed up with Alan to the event that they were at, and then deleted it off his phone. Also, Madison is right above Michelle's name in the contact list. So it's interesting that he was out with them, and it's interesting that she wasn't there. So basically, yeah, she asked, what did you do? He's like, I was at a bar last night with Alan and Madison, and it's called Casey's, blah, blah, blah. Okay. In the confessional, we hear what the contents of the text is. And it's him saying, you look so good. I just want to eat you up right now. And what's funny to me is when Michelle's like, okay, so let's talk about the text. I got the impression that that text message wasn't for me. And he was like, oh yeah, you know, that definitely wasn't for you. Okay, so immediately we're off to a bad start. Immediately admitting that it's not for her. Okay. And then he goes into, well, I deleted it off of my phone, so I never thought you would get it. David, we need to have some serious conversations about your level of tech, because if you've been deleting messages for however long and of the impression that they're not showing up on people's phones, you're wrong. They've gotten every single one of those messages. So he's like, no, the message definitely wasn't for you. It was actually for my cousin Denise. You know, she was in this place in Chinatown. It's interesting also how much detail David puts into his lies. She was at this place in Chinatown. She sent me a picture of her plate, and I wrote back and said, you look so delicious. And he immediately is nervous, by the way, and like stuttering with his words. Like you can tell that this wasn't a conversation that he was ever going to bring up on his own volition. And so Michelle's like, you know, okay, was it like a drunk text? Because typically you is not the adjective that I use to describe my food. Like typically it's more like it, that. And actually, she said pronoun and she used the correct word, which sent me. That was one of the funniest things Michelle said. And he's like, okay, well, that's how I talk about my food. You know, like I've talked to my food before. This is something he decides to stand on. And then he also says that his phone is cracked. So he deleted the message and then simply scrolled through his phone and responded to Michelle by accident. David, you're going through so much. Like the level of commitment reminds me of when I used to tell a lie in high school, and I would go home to my parents' house and have like this elaborate, like first me and Kayla like went to the movies, and then after that we capped the night by talking to her mom about teenage pregnancy. Like just something like, why did you have to throw that in there? Like, why is that in there? So yeah, David, you're an idiot. Why would you delete the text anyways from your cousin? That's very odd. It's odd that you're acting. Why would you bring your cousin into it? Like, out of all of the people you could bring into it, bringing a family member into it is very weird. I think that either Madison sent him a risque photo, or like I said, she walked in the bar, he thought she looked good, and he sent her that text message, which makes me think he sent messages like this to Madison before because you're comfortable enough to send her that message and you knew that she would be receiving of it. So anyways, let's see. Oh, it's also obvious that Michelle and David are like not in constant communication by any means, because as their night out, he's not texting her, he's not talking to her. So that's why I'm like, why isn't Michelle there? And like, why does nobody care that she's not there? Wasn't that his cousin too? Yes, it was his real cousin. It was his real cousin. So saying that about your real cousin and bringing her into this, I would be feral if I was Denise. I would be like, why did you say my name on TV? Why did you bring me into this? I never would have let my name be used for a cover-up story anyways, but like, it's a mess. So as soon as Michelle's around her family, like I said, she's immediately more comfortable because she's more comfortable around anybody who's not just David. And it's also interesting seeing her family members and friends pick up on this. And it's not the first time that it's happened. Like, this is the second time that we've heard somebody who's close to her say, like, David, I'm sorry that you're getting this impression of Michelle, because like, this is just not how she is. But we do get a little bit more background on Michelle. And we hear that like one of her closest friends, her best friends, she was also very cold to at first. And Michelle's possibly one of those people who's very guarded and doesn't really like let down that guard until she's close with someone and feels like she can trust them. And then it feels like the real side of Michelle comes out. So I would perhaps even wonder if Michelle was introverted if I didn't see her interactions with other people, because to be fair, that's totally fair. But even Michelle's interactions with the other girls who she hasn't known for that long is just a lot different than how she is around David. And I have that written in my notes. I think it's a lot more than just warming up to David. I think he really bothers Michelle. Like I've said since the beginning, the disdain that she has towards David seems like they've been together for like 7 years in their relationship. And she's at that point where when he even breathes, he bothers her. So for her to already be at that level just makes me wonder about what David's doing behind the scene. Even crazier that was over dumplings. Exactly. And David tried to be like, like, she sent me some exotic food, the exotic food in question, dumplings. You're just a mess. You're a mess. Okay, so Madison and Alan play softball together, and somebody brought up a good point on TikTok, and they said that they think that Madison is like tactfully planning like physical activities with Alan. And I don't know if she's trying to encourage him to like keep hitting the gym, or I don't know if she's trying to see like what his capabilities are, but I thought that was a good point. Maybe even perhaps like testing his masculinity. I thought that was an interesting point, and it's not one that I saw when I was watching, but I wanted to say it just to see if other viewers perhaps thought that, because once I heard that, it is something that I could see happening. But I also think it's valid that softball is a comfort place for Madison. We hear a lot about her childhood, Alan's childhood, how softball came in at a time where she needed to grow her confidence. It seems like because, okay, and Madison references how her mom made her feel ashamed, like in front of her peers. And she references her 5th grade birthday party where her mom showed up drunk with her boyfriend, ruined her party. And it seems like Madison had to parent her parent. Like the child is parenting the parent, parentifying relationship. That's not good. And it seems like because Madison had to advocate for herself, and not only advocate for herself, but watch after her parent. Like, her relationship with Alan really bothers her on immaturity. Like, yes, Madison's not attracted to Alan. I don't think that they would have made a good match if I was matching them up myself. But I also think that Madison can be very triggered by Alan because of his impulsiveness, his rash decisions, and his immaturity. And I think that we saw a lot of that over their argument over Alan driving drunk. I don't think that that's something that Madison wants to have to regulate her partner on. I think she wants them to be there on their own. And it's also like, I brought this point up on my TikTok as well. I think that because both Madison and Alan both had, as they worded it, non-traditional upbringings, and they both have a lot of trauma from their childhood, their family dynamic perhaps looks different than, and not to say that this is the normal, but it looks different than someone whose parents have been married for 41 years and all of the family members live close by and they're spending the holidays together. That's not the situation that Madison and Alan have. And I think that for the both of them to have that situation, I think that I wouldn't be surprised if one of them wanted to get into a relationship and have a sturdier support system to fall back on, and perhaps experience things that they didn't have the ability to experience when they were a child, and like that closeness of the family. So I sort of think that that's something that's going on in their relationship as well. And if they're not feeling that, completely valid. I would love to interview them and hear more about that. But I think that relationships and being in, they got married. Okay. So that's like a very serious relationship. I think relationships often act as a mirror for people to see what their traumas are, what their triggers are, where they have bad coping mechanisms or bad communication skills. And if both of them are kind of self-realizing things at the same time, we all are, we're all processing trauma, but to that capacity and in similar avenues, I just think that that may be overwhelming. Sorry, everybody. It's early in the morning and I'm drinking my coffee. Let's see. Okay, so they play softball. Oh, yeah. And Madison basically says, okay, I think Alan basically asks her, are you attracted to me or not? And she's basically like, I feel closer to you and I hate the fact that I don't feel that attraction to you. And I'm still hoping that that romantic side will flip in our relationship. But no. And what I got from that is Alan's friend zoned. Okay. And what I got from that is you're a nice guy and I want to keep in touch, but I don't feel that way about you. That's what I got from that conversation. And I think that that's what Alan has been getting from his conversations with Madison. It's also like, even when Madison and Alan, because again, it's all been like sports activities. When they went and played tennis that one episode, and the agreement was that she gives Alan a kiss at the end of it. And she was like, a kiss on the cheek, stipulation. We didn't say where I was going to kiss you. It's like, you don't even want to touch him or be around him. And I'll say again, Alan having a puppy and them having Luffy in their apartment is a distraction in their relationship. They've said it. It's a distraction for the two of them. I think it also adds another layer of responsibility. I think it also kind of shows just, I don't know. I don't know when Alan found out about being cast. Of course, everybody, I love animals. I love dogs as well. But it's like, is that the best time to do that while you're trying to film, while you're trying to work out somebody living in your space? I don't know. It feels like a distraction for them. And it also feels like something where they could, like I said, get distracted and not talk about important things as well. It's like you have this constant source of entertainment and something to lighten up the mood or distract from the conversations going on or make them more intense. I also think Madison and David should have been paired up together from the very beginning. If we're talking about this cast and the people who we're working with, the experts would have paired Madison and David up together from the beginning. And I still don't know if they didn't do that just so that they could have something like this happen. Of course, they can't force people to cheat, but I kind of feel like that was intentional. Let me change my background. Okay. Let's talk about Akechi and M. Okay. So at this point in their relationship, they both do separate activities and check in with their support systems. M takes her dog to the groomer. Akechi goes and does some boxing with his friend. And basically, M tells her friend she doesn't know how to show up right now because how she shows up in her regular life and how she has conversations with people in her normal life is not conducive to how her husband and the person that she's been paired with wants her to have conversations. And I think that Akechi fails to realize that that's really where a lot of M's questions stem from, as opposed to trying to have like an aha, got you moment, caught you slipping. I think it's really from the lens of, what do you want from me? This is my normal. This is how I interact with things. This is how I'm comfortable. I'm also in an uncomfortable position filming with someone who I don't know. So if my normal is bothersome to you, then I need some more communication and guidance as to how you want to be communicated with. And Akechi doesn't want to get to communicate with M and tell her how he wants to be communicated with. And that's where I start to wonder. Shout out to my friend Janae, who's came on the podcast before, and we've discussed this. She's a marriage family therapist. She said, I think that's where the narcissism comes in. I can see that, because I really don't know if I believe that anyway that M approached Akechi was going to be helpful for them to have a conversation. Let's see. I had a couple of notes that I wanted to go over with. Like I just said, yes, no matter what she does. And then to add, I think it's either clear that he either intentionally lacks care for M's feelings, or he's just not interested. He's not interested, because you can't show up as you are right now because that's too much for me and I need space. And then also saying like, and when I say I need space, it's on my timeline. That is in no way leaving space or room for her feelings, or even a compromise, or approaching things as a duo. That's very much prioritizing his feelings over hers. And he's also clarified before as well, in whether it was in a prior episode or this episode, I'm not trying to answer your question. He's point blank said, yes, I'm being evasive. I'm not trying to answer your question. I don't want to answer your question. Essentially, he doesn't want any questions asked of him. Imagine if M had that reaction when he asked her if she knew how to play spades. Like, you know what I mean? Like imagine if she was like, well, I don't want you to ask me. I just want to be able to show you that I can play. Come on now. Come on now. Yep. So he made himself a man of few words. He's icing her out. Purposefully does not answer M's questions. Purposefully does not answer Dr. Pia's questions. Debatable if there's like a little bit of misogyny going on there as well, because he is able to, you know, at least get a little deeper when he talks to Pastor Cal. I don't know what's going on there. It may just be as simple as that's where he feels comfortable. It's man to man. Additionally, it's black man to black man. So maybe they have that, like I said, layer of comfortability, but he's certainly not willing to give when he's talking to Dr. Pia or to M in the conversation. And I still think that he's going out of his way to not communicate with her ever since he saw her apartment. I think that for a couple of reasons. I think that, number one, I think he was put off by her saying that she's dated men who felt insecure over what they had when they saw her apartment. I think it's that. I think that he seems like the type of person who may hear a comment like that and immediately go to the place of, she's going to feel that way about me. Oh, it doesn't matter what I do. She's going to find fault in me. And so preemptively just disassociated and pulled himself out of that conversation and resented her first. I don't know if it's jealousy over seeing the success that she has. I don't know if it's, again, insecurity and how do I lead if she has this, or even if it's wondering, I don't have the ability to control her financially. She's got it. She makes her own finances. She's stable on her own. She has her own standards and boundaries, and that's not going to be something that I'm able to manipulate. And it could be that as well. But I really think that as soon as he saw her apartment, that sense of, well, there's no point in trying to lead her, then you lead me if you have that money, if you have that kind of money, and if you're stable like that? What can I add to your life? I feel like that's really where that attitude came in, because on the honeymoon, I just really wasn't getting that from him. Now, maybe it started even sooner than then, because he does keep referencing comments about her on the honeymoon, implying that she would have slept with anyone, she would have showered with anyone. It wasn't because she wanted to get close or intimate with her husband. I still don't understand that. And I don't know if they dive into this deeper on the after show, but I'm still not understanding where that reaction was coming from. And I don't know if it's appropriate for us to dive deeper into, but it seems like it's kind of something large to attach to M, the implication that she was like purposefully ignoring him or making him feel uncomfortable. So I hope that we get to dive into like why he really felt that way. And again, my friend Janae brought up a great point. She said, it's probably likely that he wanted to be the one to bring up when they should be intimate. It wanted to be on his timeline, under his control. And again, having issues with not letting him lead that, when it very much should be on both of your partner's timelines. And it's like, okay, well, if she's ready, then you figure out if you're ready as well, not resenting her for being ready or implying nefarious things. Okay, let's see. Okay, so back to what they're doing. So Akechi goes out with his friend, does some boxing. He says he feels frustrated with the process, his wife, and talking about his feelings so extensively in general. I do understand the note of talking about your feelings so extensively. I think that would be painful to just have to keep hitting it, keep hitting it, keep hitting it. And who knows how long they're filming sessions for, or how many additional scenes are filmed that we just don't see because they don't get the reactions that they want. So I can understand that. But simultaneously, your wife is in the same position. Everyone is in the same position. So let's see. Oh, yeah. He also says that he does not want to live with M. He doesn't know what to do because he told the experts that he was ready to move in with her, give that a shot, but he actually doesn't feel like that's going to be beneficial for the relationship. And I'm so glad that separately M was talking to her friend about the same thing, and she also didn't feel like it was going to be beneficial, because I think that if this was a point where they weren't on the same page as, I already don't think the relationship is repairable. I think M should not be with him. I don't think he respects her, but I definitely don't think it would be then. I think he already treats M's accommodation and openness to the expert's advice as if she herself is trying to push him, and not like she's getting advice to breach certain conversations or to approach things a certain way, or even be willing to do a certain activity that the experts have recommended. I feel like he's having this tendency to like resent her willingness to do that. So I'm glad that she also didn't want to live with him, because I already know that he would be like, see, again, and she was ready to push my boundaries. So let's see. Okay, Carla and Juan. Carla and Juan write letters to their younger selves, and they share it with each other on camera. This was a very powerful moment. Like, this was a very powerful moment to listen to Juan's story and to hear about, his childhood and some of the traumas that he either still holds or has worked through. Listening to him talk about his abandonment issues, about getting through and working through anger, about getting past poverty, his dad's cancer, like all of that added a lot of context and perspective to Juan. And I'm sort of understanding now more comments about people who say that Juan needs to be with a stable partner. Oh, wait, let me change my background. I think I have one of them. Do I? Yes. Okay. So it looks like I'm sitting with them. Perfect. So yeah, I do sort of understand that, but I don't necessarily get the vibe from Carla that she's not stable just because she quit her job. Again, she wasn't working in corporate America where she was in an office setting 6 days a week, with benefits, and worked for this position. Like, she was a hairstylist, which is a great job, but she can also do it on her own. It sounds to me like she would like to have her own place. And it also, as someone who's worked in a salon and worked for hairstylists, I can't imagine like coordinating with the salon and your clients and at the capacity to which the salon would like you to, the volume of clients to be seeing while you're filming. I think that would be, I think that would be crazy. I don't think it's compatible with her filming schedule. Yes, I do think she's carefree, and I do think she's kind of lackadaisical, and I do think that she kind of lacked a concept for her business plan. But I don't think that means, as far as being stable for her partner and showing up for her partner and being loyal to them, that she lacks that. I do think that this is a platonic relationship, and I can't quite figure out why. Because a lot of people don't think that Juan is attracted to Carla because of those things, because she lacks a secure space, or he was put off by her job. But I also don't think that Carla seems very attracted to Juan. I don't see sparks flying between the two of them. On paper, I stand on what I said. She could have complimented him very well. They both could have. It's not like the same as mixing like oil and gasoline. I feel like the two of them meshed together better than that. I feel like she offered him, like I said, that sturdiness in terms of she's going to show up. She's loyal to her family and friends. She's a soft place. She's emotionally intelligent. She literally does inner child healing work. So she would be a great person for him to have conversations with. But they both sort of seem like they just need to hire each other, to be honest. Like, he needs to do inner child therapy work with Carla, and she needs to hire him for her business plan. I don't see that level of romantic between them, but on paper, I see where the experts were coming from. It's just not coming through, and they don't seem interested in each other on that level. And I don't think that any amount of activities planned by Dr. Pia is going to help that either, in my opinion. I think that if they wanted to have that type of relationship and vibe, they would have that already without the instruction from outside sources. Okay. So I already talked about Madison and Alan and how they were both processing their own trauma. So I don't really need to hit on that as they go fishing and they talk more about their childhood dynamics. Let's see. What do I want to hit? Let's go to part 2. Okay, so let's go to Thomas and Camille. To be honest, I feel like I talked about Madison and Alan a lot. I also feel like Madison and Alan were shown so much this episode. It was borderline like, okay, we get it. I want to see the other couples. I want to see the other couples at this point. So Thomas and Camille meet Thomas's biological mom, and we learn a little bit about that relationship. We learn a little bit about the age that she was pregnant with Thomas, the conflicting position that she was put in, also the regret that she had instantaneously for letting him go. And we hear about them coming together in more recent years and developing a relationship with each other, and intentionally so. He wanted to have her in his life, and she was waiting for him to want to be involved in her life. I think Camille did a good job of facilitating this conversation. There was a couple of things, and it's such a sensitive conversation, but there were a couple of things that stood out to me that I hope aren't inappropriate to say. As someone who's been around it before, it seems to me like Thomas's mom likes to drink a lot. Like when he made the comment that his mom likes to party, and, like she's, whether she's that eccentric or she's like the vibe or like the vibe of the party, it seems like Thomas's mother likes to drink a lot. They had shots right when he started working there, and it doesn't seem like something that he enjoys. It seems like it could be, in fact, a point of contention in their relationship. And I think that even his decision, again, I'm talking from experience of being around it without imposing this on Thomas. I think even his grabbing the beer is to appease her, so that she doesn't look like she's drinking, and that nobody else wants to. But I also noticed that he abstained from having a shot when it was offered to the group. And yeah, like I said, having been around it, I think that when he goes over to his mom's house, yes, I think he loves her. I think he's very happy to have a relationship, but I think it's something that he has to kind of like mentally prepare for, because I think that there's a lot going on. And I guess that that's where I'll leave it. I do think, and I don't know what their conversations went like off camera, but again, a good conversation I had with my friend Janae. I'm going to keep mentioning her. Follow her, Janae Tipton LMFT, or just, it may just be MFT right now. Janae Tipton MFT on Instagram, TikTok. She's been on the pod before. Maybe Thomas could have like warned Camille a bit better about what to expect when he went over there. Now we have no idea if that conversation did happen, but she seemed like if she was more aware of what the situation was and Thomas's feelings around things, like maybe she wouldn't have had that same reaction or would have approached things differently. That's my opinion. Okay, so M and Akechi talk. Let's see. Let's go back to them. And here's the other thing. He's always making this face and he always has his backpack. It's just like, I hate to be rude, but there's almost like a cloud over Akechi. And when he walks in the room, it's just like record scratch, vibe shift. Wow. And it makes me wonder, I don't think everybody's cut out to be on reality TV, which is interesting because Akechi did apply twice, but I don't think that people have any idea as to what it's like to actually have to work with production, to be produced, to have to do all the things you have to do. And I think that he's hating it. I think he seems like somebody who likes to do things when he wants to do them. And I think that he's just hating this entire experience. And as someone who also doesn't want to do things unless I want to do them, I can kind of understand that. But it's horrible to watch how he treats M. And I don't think he should have been put on this show because, again, I don't think everybody is meant to be on reality television. He is one of those people. So he tells her, I don't think it's a good idea to come back in. His word choice was interesting to me. He did say to M, because I don't want to come back into this space detesting you. She's able to control her facial expressions more than me because I've been like, detesting. That's a strong word. Detest. You detest me. Okay. Again, not to pick, but detest was a strong word choice. And I think that that is his feelings for M. I think he was speaking very candidly in this conversation. He also says that this space still instills a sense of discomfort or anxiety for him. Again, we don't really understand this. I don't know how much is appropriate to dive into, but the allegations and the tone that's being implied at M, I think is unfair. And I think that we should address it further to really understand what's happening here. M attempts to bring up during this conversation. She's like, you know what? I don't want to move in together either. I think that's a great idea. And she's like, I would appreciate if you would be more communicative. And he's like, okay, I hear you. I will be. And she's like, okay. And he did say, I will be more communicative. I thought that I was being that. If I'm not, let me know. And so she was honest. She was like, I don't think you've been communicative. Last week, I tried to reach you all week. I didn't hear back from you. And he's upset by this. Like, he's like, don't bring up last week. The past is in the past. Let's leave it in the past. And how are we going to move forward if we can't properly address things? Also, there's no line of credibility here. If assuming that you're treating this relationship and this process seriously, the communication would have never dwindled, despite you not being in the same space. So what do you mean? Like, where is she supposed to gather that all of a sudden you're going to put in the effort to now communicate with her when you would think that both of you had the same energy and commitment towards this process? You haven't. And now you don't even want to bring up the week to where arguably the communication fell off the worst. I just don't understand what he wants from her. He wants to leave a very massive sized elephant just sitting right in the corner of the room, almost on M's lap, and just not address it. And that to me is confusing. So he also says He wants to apologize if that's how she felt. I think there will be two groups of people. I think some people will think that's an apology. He apologized. Why are you trying to pick the exact words that he uses? For me, I hear that and I say that's not an apology. You're not acknowledging that she felt that way and that you did in fact make her feel that way. You're apologizing if that's how she felt. And as M says, I just told you that I felt that way. You made me feel that way. So would you like to apologize for making me feel that way? Or if that's how I felt? It's really just not acknowledging her experience is what it is. It's really dismissive. And I think M even says that. And he says, if I ask for space, and I brought this up earlier, it's on my time, not yours. And again, she's so much more graceful. She's so much more graceful than I think I would ever find the ability to muster up, because she says that she both understands that and she receives that that's where he's at, but she also doesn't think that that's healthy. And his response is, do you think this relationship is healthy? Clearly not. Clearly not. And it would be great to hear you take some accountability for as to why it's not, personally, just personally. Oh God. Okay. And also he tried to gaslight this earlier at a dinner. As I'm looking through my notes, I'm remembering that when they went out to dinner with the cast, she said, I haven't heard from him all week. And he says, that's not true. It's just like denying when there's receipts makes no sense. So M points out at the end of their conversation, he seems very defensive right now. He says, I am defensive. And then they take a break to get water. And that's the end of their conversation. I think the question that was asked to M of why do you want to be in a relationship with him and why do you want to keep trying when he has dismissed you is a valid question to ask her, just to make sure that she isn't abandoning herself. But it's stupid to ask that question of her when she could easily ask, and why did you put me in this position? Why did you cast him? You can't tell me you've had conversations with him before to where you didn't pick up on the exact behavior that you're seeing right now in front of us. I also think it's interesting that we've heard prior contestants come out and say recently that allegedly the couples get no face-to-face time with Dr. Pia, Dr. Pepper, Pastor Cal. All of it is filmed. There's no separate sessions going on in the week to get them through or to work through things and recommendations off camera. They only meet when they're on camera. So this entire show is quite honestly dangerous and puts people in danger, because how are we to believe that they even do a good job with casting, selection, and intention to make sure that people are okay? Towards the end of the episode, and obviously the best part, David and Michelle talk about the text again. And this is where we get to hear David say the famous line, my family is not normal. Okay, David. Okay, David. Where can I put myself so that we can see Michelle? Okay. First of all, David would have never mentioned this. I'll say it again. David would have glossed over this. He never would have mentioned this. This would have never left David's mouth if Michelle didn't bring it up. That's a fact. Okay. He wanted to sit here and read his letter to his childhood self. That's not appropriate, David. David, I don't care about your letter to your childhood self. Last night, you sent me a text. I'm going to eat you up. And now it's for your cousin. So I have like two separate sets of worries going on here, potentially even three. So, and earlier in the episode, we see Michelle go out to dinner with her friend, which is hilarious to me because she's out to dinner with her friend. Again, she's in a great mood. Her friend gives her the confidence. They're talking about David. She wants to get to know David. The friend says, and then she's like, does he ever send you, texts? And she's like, it's so funny that you ask that. Yes. And it's like, okay. Again, who was trying to say the show's not produced? Because that's a produced conversation if I've ever seen it. And it's very obvious. So they had to have that conversation. Her friend knew. They definitely talked about that on the phone before they decided to meet up. It was probably the reason why they met up, so that they could talk about it. And because they had that conversation off camera, the producers were like, listen, Michelle, yes, you're valid, but you need to talk about this on camera. We need transparency for the audience. So she gets a boost of confidence from her friend, and she comes to David and she asks David, so what were you eating? What were you eating? And this is where David's like, oh, and she also goes into like, what immediately going from what were you eating, giving him the temporary benefit of the doubt, to, so what was she wearing? What was she wearing? What color was the plate, David? What color was the plate, David? Was the flash on? Mm-hmm. Was it a still photo or was it a live photo? Did it move? Who was she with? What color shoes was she wearing? Like, her questions were so funny. And it's like, to be fair, would David remember all of these small details? Probably not. But would David have the text message if it was truly a food? Yes. Would David never send a text message to his cousin that says, you look so good, I'm going to eat you up? Yes. The immediate rapid text after that to say, that's not what I meant, oh my God, wrong person, would be insane. The embarrassment would be insane. But again, he says, I don't know what was on my plate. It was a food, some sort of exotic food. You know, they were out in Chinatown. We were going to go meet up and then decided not to. And again, exotic food in question, a dumpling. A dumpling. Okay. He also holds firm on the position that he was texting his cousin. Michelle's like, really, David, your cousin? Like, just be honest with me. Like, who were you texting? Who were you texting? And we also find out in this conversation, do we find out in this conversation? I swear David says in this conversation that he's also been going out to coffee or something with girls. He's been, you know, talking to his exes. Him and his exes are good friends. And why wouldn't he be having those conversations? Michelle never said that was off limits. And on one hand, valid. Okay, you guys haven't really talked about your boundaries in the relationship. Also, if Michelle was giving you nothing, I don't blame you for needing validation and kind of honestly looking externally for that validation if you're just getting the cold shoulder all the time. Is it disrespectful? Absolutely. Absolutely. But the commitment to this lie is crazy, especially if the person he's talking to is just really Madison. Like, not only are you talking to all of these girls, but you're talking to Madison. And that's what makes me wonder if David also never cared for Michelle and if he was immediately interested into Madison and has been very unserious this entire time. Because if he's been giving that energy, and if that's something that Michelle's been picking up on as well, then I don't blame her for just kind of like resenting him every time he steps in the room. Like, you're so unserious. You're so unserious. He's also moved the goalpost. He said 1 minute, I'm financially secure. I'm ready. I was ready to move into a house. I was waiting to find a wife. I want her to help me pick it out. And then the next moment, 10 episodes later, we're in a therapy session and David says it's actually 2 to 3 years before I'm going to be ready to get a house. And again, no shade, but you didn't say that. You did not say that. You have not been honest about that. David is not the innocent, nice guy people think he is. Agreed. And that's why I think we've been getting the nice guy edit. And I think that it's been very easy to make Michelle look like the villain. And perhaps maybe even Michelle is a little bit of a villain. But it's like, what came first, the chicken or the egg? Because I'm kind of starting to think that Michelle picked up on David's bullshit very early on. She thought that that even pairing them up was a very unserious decision. And I think that she went that way in their relationship. And I think he didn't show her any reason to believe it was serious. And I think that the conversations and the way that he has grace for her on camera when he's being filmed is perhaps different than what she is getting behind the scenes. And the way that he gaslit her here, the way that he stood on things, the way he said, well, we are not a normal family, just refusal to even acknowledge when it is so obvious. It is so obvious. If David wants to date other people, then just call it quits with Michelle. Exactly. Exactly. And that's what leads me to believe that part of this is at least producer intended, producer manipulated, because they know it's happening. I think they've heard rumors. I do. I think that they're waiting for this to come to fruition. And if we're honest, I think that other people are going to have picked up on this too, because who else was there? So it was Madison and David. And was Alan there? Like other people know of this. Other people know of this. Other people on the cast, I'm sure of it. So yeah, we are not a normal family. We don't say normal things. And then he piles on and makes it even worse and says, I actually have nicknames for my cousin. I call her baby. You're my number one. I talk to my food with you pronouns. I can't. I can't. And this is the thing. This is why I think that David is a deeply unserious individual. It would be easy to pull up your phone, call your cousin, and say, I'm still so embarrassed I sent you that text. Can you send it to me? Or, hey, I know that we have a really weird relationship. Can you just clarify that for Michelle? Or even, hey, send me an exact screenshot of the conversation you have on your phone so I can prove to Michelle that we actually had it. And this is how dumb and uncommitted David is. He really could have just texted his cousin that exact thing, have called her, told her that he's going to be her escape plan, and then sent Michelle the text. You could have done that. You could have done that. To not even take the commitment tells me you're playing right in her face and you borderline want to be disrespectful and get caught. It's an 8-week process. It's not that hard to wait. Exactly. It also makes me wonder about the legitimacy of these marriages. Are they truly saying I do? Because if so, what is decision day? Are they getting their wedding? Are they getting their marriage annulled? Has it been short enough time? Are they getting a hard divorce? Like what actually happens in this? I also just want to know if we can admit that the experts were deeply unserious with who they matched this season. And really, basically none of the couples are a great match, with the exception of Camille and Thomas. That's it. But yeah, David's crazy. That's a crazy lie. I would be so embarrassed if I was his cousin. He should be embarrassed anyways. Oh my God, I love when she walks out of the room and she's like, but for the record, I don't believe you. Maybe Michelle should be on reality TV. Maybe she should be on reality TV. But to be honest, she didn't deserve getting paired up with David. It's clear that they don't have similar goals. I don't know. Maybe Michelle and Juan would have been a good match. I don't know. They at least have more in common with their like desires for the relationship. I'm really curious to see what happens and how long it takes for this to come to fruition. We've been waiting all season. I just honestly want to see Michelle and David already. If you haven't seen it, go to my TikTok, because on my TikTok, I posted the photos. And spoilers, if you don't want spoilers, go away. But I posted the photos of Madison and David out together. It looks like they were out to dinner together. It looks like they were in Target spotted together. So it looks like Madison and David, whether they are still together, I don't know. But at some point are together, are definitely together at some point. So I'm wondering if we get to actually see that during the season and what will happen from that. Leave me all your comments, all of your thoughts. How many couples do you think were good matches this season? Is anybody a good match? And do you think the experts are really doing a good job at giving these couples solid advice? Or do you think that all of the advice that they've gotten is more harmful than helpful? Let me know in the comments your thoughts. See you maybe this time next week for the next week's episode. Bye, guys. Happy Sunday.